will begin mass layoffs of its workforce as early as this morning. Employees were formally notified yesterday that dismissals would finally begin after months of delays. The mass firings are a part of a reorganization of the agency that includes closing or merging more than 300 bureaus and offices. The plan was unveiled by Secretary of State Marco Rubio back in May. He called his department bloated and said the changes would better align it with core American values and root out pockets of radical political ideology. The Supreme Court cleared the way for the cuts earlier this week after overturning a lower court decision that had blocked the Trump administration from moving forward with the layoffs. So, Susan, we just talked about one global hotspot, the war in Europe, but there are no shortage of them. And I guess to Secretary of State Rubio's, claim there, it's hard to imagine, America being safer with less of a presence overseas, but it seems to be sort of more of an isolationist, inward-looking move for an administration that, frankly, seems to want to abdicate some of America's role around the globe.
Yeah, I think this is a really important point. First of all, that quote is a remarkable quote from Marco Rubio, formerly not only an establishment-type Republican, but a huge proponent of diplomacy and American soft power around the world. The flip-flop by Marco Rubio is one of the more dramatic, if underappreciated, stories in Trump 2.0. And that quote, what does it do? It underscores the idea that it's not just a kind of an inward-looking isolationist foreign policy that the Trump administration is pursuing right now, Jonathan, but it's actually a war against radical political ideology. That's the enemy within. This is a modern-day version, essentially, of a kind of McCarthyism that you're seeing. Remember that one of McCarthy's main targets was enemies, as he called them, within the State Department, who were somehow disloyal. And so that language, to me, especially at the State Department, that's a historical echo that Marco Rubio had to have been conscious of when he used that phrase. And he, of course, is parroting Donald Trump himself, who I think in one of the most, sort of overlooked statements before the 2024 election, Trump gave an interview in which he said, we have adversaries, we have Russia and China internationally, but then we have the enemy from within. And of those, the enemy from within is the greater enemy. And I think this administration isn't so much focused on countering adversaries overseas as it is in a series of loyalty purges from within. We just heard those horrifying statistics about FEMA and not only the vacancies there, but the idea that the Secretary of Homeland Security would want to be personally signing off on minor decisions because they don't trust federal government employees. But, of course, Russia and China have radically expanded their presence overseas in countries around the world in order to counter the United States and its soft power. So this is like an own goal once again.
Hey, Michael, it's Heilman here. I want to go back to your piece, or at least to a related thing in your piece, because Elon Musk, obviously, at the center of your piece and the potential of a third-party effort. This week, Elon Musk was among many Republicans in the MAGA coalition, or who knows if he's still in it or not, who were expressing a kind of sense of deep betrayal over this Jeffrey Epstein matter. And I knew that MAGA cared about the Jeffrey Epstein matter. I did not know quite how much MAGA cared about Jeffrey Epstein, because the volume and the Trump loyalists who were making loud noises about wanting to fire Pam Bondi and so on really took me aback a little bit. Did it take you aback, and where do you think that goes? Does it have any long-term consequence?
It definitely took me aback, John. I was right there with you. I was surprised by the pushback, surprised by the passion of the anger. I'm not sure it lasts that long, though. I don't think Trump is going to abandon Pam Bondi over this. I think she's carrying out his orders in 15 different ways that he's very happy with. And I think that's going to get worse, frankly, from my perspective. I don't know what's there with the Epstein story, obviously. Maybe there is a file, maybe there isn't a file. It's hard to say. But, at the end of the day, when it's Trump versus the deep state, I think MAGA is going to rally back around him. But nevertheless, it's an interesting fissure. It's an interesting thing to watch, and it tells us that they can break away from dear leader and the sky won't fall. And that may be a moral that some people take away from this that will come in handy politically from my point of view in the future.
So interesting. Editor of The New Republic, Michael Tomasky, and staff writer at The New Yorker, Susan Glasser. Thank you both very much for being on this morning. And coming up on Morning Joe, we're going to take a look at some of the other stories making headlines this morning, including